Hello everyone and welcome to this Fireside chat with Mr. Sonny Mirborn, CEO at Alcadon. We'll be addressing some broader questions about the current situation in Alcadon, the general strategy moving forward. And I'd perhaps like to just start with how you view the current situation in the different end markets you are active in. If we can sort of discuss it by product area, where are you seeing better demand and where are you seeing perhaps more challenges right now?
Sure, it's not always that easy question since we are pan-European and it looks quite different in different geographical markets. But overall, you could say that the data center segment is growing quite rapidly. I mean, it's riding on these mega trend waves with increasing amounts of data, mostly due to the emergence of artificial intelligence, of course. You see the hyperscales investing quite a lot, and you see a lot of energy companies and financial institutions investing a lot in data centers. So that's a very strong area for us in, I'd say, all geographies where we work towards data centers, which is every geography except Germany today. When it comes to commercial properties or enterprise cabling, it's more steady, I would say. We haven't seen that significant rise yet, and it's partly because of the construction market. It's affected by the interest rates. We see that will probably bounce back quite soon, but we can't see it really just yet. When it comes to broadband, we know that halted about a year and a half ago because of the increasing interest rates. But now we are starting to see that it really bounces back, particularly in the UK, but also in other markets. So it's of course extremely positive. In countries like Belgium and Germany, we haven't really seen any negative effect. On the contrary, we have grown quite a lot in the broadband segment. But it's also because we are a little bit of a new entrant and we won some really interesting customer deals, and that has enabled us to grow despite the market conditions.
I understand. And just narrowing in on specifically the broadband part, which, as you mentioned, has weighed a bit on the growth rates recently. Is your view that market has perhaps bottomed out at this point, and sort of how are you preparing yourselves for an eventual upturn if that's the case?
You can say we have continued to work as we did before. We normally, when we see that a market has the potential to grow for the long term, we don't focus more on other segments in the short run. So we continue to focus on the segment, and as you say, we have seen a bottom out, perhaps the last 2 quarters, which is quite good, of course, especially since the British market is now bouncing back a little bit. And we see the same in the Nordics, that the projects are continuing to roll again. It's perhaps only Denmark where we have not started to see that yet. And perhaps you have to wait until Q1 2025 before that comes back, so to say.
I understand. And then obviously data centers right now is an extremely hot topic. Can you just outline a bit for those that perhaps are not as familiar with you, what your specific exposure is within that space and your market position there?
We work with some of the really large global players in kitting out the data centers. So we work with cabinets, cabling, etc., cooling solutions. We do that with a number of global players that help us win the really large deals. But we also have some of our own brands where we develop solutions ourselves. Could be for small data centers belonging to energy companies or financial institutions. And that mix of having our own products that we develop ourselves and having the world-renowned products, that's a great mix. And what we sell the most of is different per geographical market. But we see that our strength in the data center segment has increased the last 2 years, especially with the acquisition of Network Center and Wood Communication in Ireland. That has given us a completely strengthened portfolio towards data centers, for sure.
I understand. And then if we sort of move on with those acquisitions specifically, I mean, the growth has been largely organic, but also to a large extent from M&A in the recent few years. Can you just outline your overall strategy within M&A, how you think about acquisitions and pricing perhaps, and also maybe talk about those last few acquisitions that you made?
Yeah, sure. I can start with those 2 last ones that we did. With Network Center, that was a hugely successful acquisition. The first year you do an acquisition, it's acquisitive growth, even though they are growing organically. And they have grown with 42% since we acquired the company, and that's in less than 2 years. So it has become a totally different animal after the acquisition, and they have done this with a strong cash flow and good margins. So we're quite satisfied about that, and it has strengthened the group. Same with Wood Communication. It's quite recent, a few months ago. So we have started with the synergy realization now within the company and cross-selling capabilities, etc. And they strengthen us in the global, especially European presence in hyperscale data centers. So it's a good acquisition for us. In terms of pricing for acquisition, it looks basically the same all over Europe in our field, and you pay basically 4.5 to 7 times EBITDA in general, I would say, and that's basically what we have paid as well. The size of the multiple depends on the size of the company and the growth prospects of the company. So it's quite highly correlated with that. So as a buyer, you have to be very confident in that you're paying what the company is actually worth, or perhaps even less so. When it comes to our acquisition strategy, so far we have done large-scale transformative acquisitions, and they've turned out to be really good for us. I think going forward, we are now in a position with strong cash flow and a better net debt situation that we can do acquisitions more of a serial fashion, that we can do 1 or 2 or 3 acquisitions a year, but smaller ones, perhaps even in the current geographical markets, and merge them with their current operations, or sometimes have them as standalone companies. And I think that's something really good for us, as long as we stay within the field that we know best.
And is it any specific sort of product vertical that you're looking more or less at in that space? Are you perhaps open to venturing into new product verticals as well?
We are looking primarily in the 3 segments that we are today, so cabling, data centers, and broadband. But we are looking at a number of different segments that are closely related. In some countries, it's exactly the same customers, and we have competence already. Could be the security or safety area, like cameras, etc., and surveillance equipment, which is sold basically to the same installers that are buying the network equipment. So these are the things that we're looking at today on a European basis.
And just in general regarding the pipeline at the moment, is there anything you can mention about sort of how many prospects you're looking at, and how many negotiations there are perhaps ongoing and things like that? Any flavor on that?
We usually say that we have a number of interesting acquisitions at any given point of time. I mean, we started with this work in 2017, before I started. So during that time, we have worked ourselves to have a very nice pipeline, and some of those prospects, we have had a discussion with them for 4 or 5 years, and that's what you have to do, because you have to get to know each other. And we have a pretty big number of companies like that, so we could at any given point of time do a number of acquisitions, but we are extremely careful, and so far we have chosen to do the really large ones that we where we can see the best benefits across the group, basically.
And then, even though obviously acquisitions are always on the agenda for you, in the recent quarters, I would say that we've also seen, as organic growth has slowed down, perhaps more of a focus on capital efficiency, on improving working capital. Would you say that the focus going forward will be more towards the growth aspect if the market has bottomed out, or are you still more towards the capital efficiency side?
I'd say we have to do both.
Okay.
For a while, we mentioned to the markets that we're focusing more on growth than the capital efficiency, because our operations demanded a lot of capital in the beginning. Now we have had time to make our operations more efficient and handling our net working capital in a more efficient manner, educated the staff across Europe, and we've had pretty good results in that. And the target being that we should be able to grow organically and through acquisitions and have a nice cash conversion. And I think today, of course, the cash conversion is over 100%. That's not sustainable for the long term, but we have some more work to do before we are fully efficient. But after that, we expect to have a steady state cash flow. And that's part of the reason why we acquired Wood Communications in Ireland. They have managed to do this extremely well. They have a EBITDA over net working capital of 100 to 130% since a few years back, which translates to a very good cash conversion. And this is something that we want all our companies and countries to be able to achieve.
And obviously, historically, this M&A journey has been partly equity financed as well, and you obviously have ongoing conversations all the time with the shareholders. Is your view now that you're in a position where you're going to use more internal cash flows for M&A, or are you still open to using the equity markets for more acquisitions here?
You should never say never, but we want to be extremely restrictive. With the last Wood acquisition, we felt that we need to do equity raise, and it's quite logical for shareholders to participate in that, given how the numbers look like. And that was good to strengthen our balance sheet once and for all. It was quite strong before as well, I think, because we have shown that we can create a very strong cash flow. But now we are in a position where we ongoing could finance a lot of acquisitions ourselves with debt and our own generated cash flow. And I think that's the way to go in the future.
With that said, I'd like to just finish off with a final question from my end. On a broader note, obviously you've announced that you will be departing the company and you have a few weeks left only in your position. Can you just talk a bit broadly about the company's sort of evolution under or since you took office, and how that has changed and the type of company you feel like you are leaving behind today?
Yeah, sure. I mean, when I entered the company, we were a Swedish-Norwegian organization, significantly smaller than we are today. And the task that I was given was that change this animal, take us out on this European journey. Before that, we had to improve our cash flow, we had to improve our margins, which we did. And we started to do acquisitions. And I mean, today we are a pan-European player, and we're quite well renowned all over Europe, and we are winning quite large tenders around Europe within our field. So we're quite happy about that. But I think the thing I'm most proud of and that people should know is that we have a lot of structural capital. We are no longer dependent on a few key individuals. We are highly decentralized. Each country and company are working by themselves, helping each other out. And I think that structural capital, often you only see that in really large companies. And we are there now, which I'm very satisfied about in everything from our sustainability work to the management processes. Everything works quite efficiently. So I think that it's quite a nice company to come into as a new management, for sure.
Okay. So with that being said, I'd like to wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors, and thank you for participating today.
Thank you.